we have here Bison Designs S3 Survival Pod. I was given this for Christmas. My girlfriend thought I would be interested in seeing how it worked and adding it to my collection of small survival knives and survival devices, which, of course, as you know, small survival tools is one of the things BFE Labs specialized in and is quite interested in. So, according to the packaging here, this little paracord fob contains a flint, which I'm assuming is actually a ferrocerium or mish metal rod, not flint, paracord, duh, a knife, tape, tinder, a sheath, and a ring. And according to them, you can push these little nubbins here to pop the ends of the paracord out and start unlacing the braid. Of course, you can also cut the ends off the paracord and take out more cordage from the inner fibers. It says that you can use your knife to strike the flint over the tinder to build a fire. And uses are unlimited. So let's see what we have. Taking apart should be fairly easy. The braiding is not terribly tight. Tight enough that it would probably hold together on your key ring. Ta-da. Get one loose and they're all loose. Fairly standard braiding here. This is probably something that almost any of us could do at home if we had the facilities to build the knife. But let's give them a fair shake and see what they have. As we get the braid off it here, you can see that the end of a fold of tape, it appears, is emerging. And I'm already somewhat concerned here because tape of almost any sort that's really usable, when it gets scrunched up like that, tends to stick together all scrunched up like that and not unroll very easily. You tend to end up with this sort of unusable little wad of tape. But we'll see. One also wonders how usable the knife is, given that it appears to be quite small. But I don't want to be a hating hater who hates until I get eyes on. So there's your two pieces of paracord. They say that you have two 2-foot pieces of paracord, but yeah, it's probably about 2 feet, I guess. One of them's a little bit short, but oh well, nothing's perfect. And now you have a bit of tape around a knife. It appears that to get to the knife, you have to undo the tape, which is not exactly a stellar design feature. Let's see. If we can pull this off, and we can't. Okay, so I'm going to unroll the tape. The assumption here that because you need a knife, you will need the tape is kind of dumb. And this is some sort of duct tape, which, as predicted, really likes to stick itself together when it's all wadded up like this. And it's proving difficult to unroll up here. And in the process of unrolling our tape, it appears we've also cut through the sheath for our survival knife. But let's see what we've revealed. We've revealed that, yes, we have indeed cut through the sheath, which is they're stuck to the tape. And our piece of tinder, which appears to be jute cord, is still trapped in the tape. Useful, no? Let's see. Well, there's the remains of our sheath, which is a piece of crappy nylon and fake leather. A small length of jute cord, and one of the tiniest ferrocerium rods I've ever seen. Not that it's not usable, that's still perfectly usable. Let us examine our knife. Our knife is a plain-edged, chisel-pointed knife that is V-ground and has a slightly knurled backside, potentially for control or striking your ferro rod. If their intent is for striking the ferro rod, I give them high marks. So many designs and so many people will tell you to rely on using the edge of your knife to strike the ferro rod, and that will damage the edge of your knife and dull it rather quickly. And that seems to be something you don't want to do in a survival situation. I have never liked doing that, and I prefer and build designs that you can use the spine rather than the edge to strike the ferro rod. Let's see if it works. And you can get some spark off it. Not a great deal of spark, but you could certainly start something burning with that. However, getting a good hold on this to do that with without hurting yourself, is that has kind of a nasty little point on the back end of it there. I'm kind of gouging myself doing that. You may want to get further back on the ring to do that. I don't know how much control that will give you. Oh, plenty. Well, the knife appears to be fairly sharp. The receipt paper is not very thick and tends to fold when you try to cut it. And you can, it's not quite shaving sharp, but it'll cut the receipt paper with the primary edge. The chisel edge may prove more difficult. But we'll see if we can lift curly Q. Nope, it's going to fold. But it's sharp enough you get something done with it. That's for certain. Having the key ring on it does seem to give a little bit more control, particularly when you get back here. Although I think if I was going to be relying on this for very long, I might use one of my pieces of paracord to make a small lanyard, just to give me better grip. But that certainly does, right out of the box, so to speak, give you some greater control over it. And as far as the tinder material, I think at this point we're all fairly familiar with using this type of cordage for tinder. You can fuzz it out and try to strike a spark into it, and which I'm not going to do on this wooden table. But so there is the Bison Designs S3 Survival Pod in a first look on initial takedown. There are several failings in this design, namely the tape. The tape is stupid. They need to either figure out a way to get the tape off without having to unroll it, so you can access the knife without having to unpack the tape, or simply forego the tape. If they're worried about the knife cutting through the paracord, I would suggest that in lieu of tape, they use a piece of electrical shrink tubing, the type used to seal joins in electrical line. You just would slide it over and apply heat with a heat gun, and it shrinks up around the blade. If they use a heavy enough piece, or if they put their sheath, note the air quotes, over the blade to protect the shrink tubing as they apply it, you might be able to actually get that off without damaging the sheath, and then you would have some, albeit slight, amount of protective cover available for this little blade. I think given that the duct tape was able to pull this stuff apart, your edge would get through there quite quickly if you were carrying this in a pocket, say. I would find some other way to carry this rather rapidly. But, you know, that may be something you could do with the little bit of tape you have left. I would find some lightweight, easily split bit of wood and fashion a little, sort of like an old-fashioned clothespin that would go around there, and I could just secure with tape so I could drop this in my pocket. But other than the miserable failing of the sheath and the tape, I'd say there's some good stuff here. A little bit of cord is always useful. You know, you might not use it for much, but it is a little bit more paracord than you might otherwise have. A little bit of mesh metal, a little bit of tinder. I mean, there are worse things to have than something you cut with and something you start a fire with. And we'll see how this actually cuts in some more extended testing. But for $15, you're not exactly out a lot if you buy one of these. That's what these run for at REI, is $15. You do, say, comparing it to BFE Lab's own micro survival knife, the ultralight kit knife, you do get more with it than you do with the ultralight kit knife for $15. I mean, I don't know what steel this is, and it's far less edge, but for somebody who likes to get a little bit more for their value, who likes to have more actual bits and parts, there is that. You know, I would hate to have to depend on, as my only survival kit, but it is a very compact little form factor. It has a neat gadget factor when it's all packed together. And it certainly doesn't lack in the nift, but practicality is maybe not entirely there. We'll take it out and use it a little bit more and probably shoot another video on it and see if we've broken it in a little while.